Now, following a second revision of its inflation measures, Zimbabwe's CPI jumped by nearly 22% in November from almost 18% previously. This defying the downward trend experienced after previous revisions. Joining us from Harare with a greater perspective on Zimbabwe's inflation trajectory is Development Economist Prosper Chitambara. Prosper, it's always a pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you too. Thank you for having me.
Prosper, I'm keen to get your thoughts here. We've always maybe associated the Zimbabwean economy with a hyperinflation, and I'm keen to get your thoughts with what we've seen happen in Zimbabwe versus the rest of the world that has also been battling with inflation.
You're actually right. We've been battling with chronic high inflation for a very, very long time. And the major drivers have been, number one, the unsustainable growth in money supply, and also exchange rate developments. We've seen a massive depreciation of the local currency, and that has obviously fed inflationary pressures. Of course, they've also been affected by external factors, the increase in the price of fuel in the past. But of course, we've also noted that recently we've seen a decrease in the price of crude oil, which has helped other countries in terms of a reduction in their inflation. So I think the trends in Zimbabwe are a bit worrisome in the sense that our inflation is actually increasing at a time when in most countries their inflation numbers are actually coming down. So it leaves us as an economy in a very difficult situation. Of course, how we calculate our inflation, we use a blended approach because we're in a dual currency where we are using both the USD and the Zimbabwe dollar. But of course, the fact that about 90% of transactions are in US dollars actually helps to moderate the Zim dollar inflation, because the Zim dollar transactions only account for less than about 10% of the total transactions.
What has the central bank done, I think, over this period and possibly over the last few years, Prosper, in an attempt to bring inflation under control?
Well, so the central bank has adopted a hawkish monetary policy stance, trying to control money supply. It's been difficult because they've had to then support the fiscal side of things. The government public spending this year has been on the high side, owing to the elections and other election-related spending. So we've seen the central bank from time to time coming in to assist. So obviously that has increased money supply growth in the economy. So I would say, even though the central bank has tried to be very conservative, I think the fiscal stance, the fiscal policy rather, has been a bit expansionary. So that is not helped matters in as far as inflation is concerned. So we need to ensure fiscal discipline alongside monetary discipline. I think that's critical in terms of ensuring or sustaining macroeconomic stability.
We have seen that there have been new pricing measures that have been introduced into the economy, Prosper. Help us understand exactly what these also entail.
Well, I'm not sure when you say pricing measures, we have not. Maybe you could clarify that.
Yeah, so with reference to how exactly people may price with the ratio between the Zim dollar and the
Okay. So in terms of pricing, so what most businesses are doing, they're actually they're setting their prices rather in USD. Then for those that cannot afford to pay in USD, they can pay actually in the local currency, but they use the official exchange rate to come up with the Zim dollar pricing. So the fact that the Zim dollar has actually been depreciating both on the official market and on the power market has actually meant that Zim dollar inflation or Zim dollar pricing rather is actually continued to increase. Now, when you look at, say, the changes in what we call the poverty datum line on an annual basis for the month of November, so the poverty datum line actually increased by 305%, while even the food poverty line also increased by 305%. So that could actually give you an indication in terms of Zim dollar price inflation. And on a monthly basis, the poverty datum line has increased by about 10%, while the food poverty line is also increased by about 10%. So that's in Zim dollar terms. So that also gives you an indication in terms of our monthly Zim dollar pricing, average price or inflation.
Prosper, I must ask you, from your perspective, what will it take to have the Zim dollar prosper again, for it to become a sovereign currency that is also then able to withhold different shocks like other currencies on the continent?
I think it will take, number one, a combination of fiscal discipline. We need to control public spending, especially non-productive public spending. We need to ensure monetary discipline, continue to control unsustainable growth in money supply. But over and above that, we need to come up with institutional reforms to targeted at reforming our parastatals and our other state-owned enterprises. Because government has been losing money through loss-making and inefficient parastatals. So that also then destabilizes the macroeconomy. But I would say discipline, fiscal discipline, monetary discipline, I think those are very, very important if we are to ensure macroeconomic stability and sustainability going forward.
Well, of course, only time will tell, Prosper. Thank you for taking us through this. It's been very valuable. That was Development Economist Prosper Chitambara.